So here's the longest part of this entire process. It's the third question, which is what we say. So something I've been taught is, when you go up to somebody, you don't want to just, push Jesus, because that will actually, um, you don't want to push Jesus into people's faces, and that will actually most likely cause them to walk farther. So what we do is we want to start off with this very basic question that does get most people to respond to. And so if you're at a restaurant, you can talk to um, your waitress or waiter or whoever, and you can ask them, "How are you?" Because this question will most likely get someone to respond, and you can get a easy opening conversation with them, or you can open a very easy um, access door to spreading the gospel. So most people normally will go, "I'm good," "I'm fine," or "I'm all right," or "I'm okay." So when they say this, sometimes they'll ask back, "How are you?" And if they respond back, that's where you will go into something called the 15-second testimony. You don't want to go straight into it like, let's see, you don't want to be like, "Well, I used to blah, 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 blah," about your testimony. You want to respond, naturally with, "I'm doing good as well." And then explain a little bit about your day. Don't go too in depth, because if this is specifically a waiter or waitress, they could be busy. So you do have to observe certain things like that. Um, but you'll respond something similar, or tell the person how your day's going if it's not going good. But then you would go, after that natural response, into your 15-second testimony. And how you do that is this. So we're going to draw a cross right here. And so we're going to draw a arrow pointing to the left. And then we're going to draw one pointing to the right. And right under here, if you're doing it like me, you're going to write before. Then over here, you're going to write after. And then after that, I want you to draw 3 lines like this for each before and after. So what these 3 lines are supposed to represent, well, actually what this overall thing is supposed to represent, is how you were before you came to know Christ, and then after you came to know Christ. And so you give 2 to 3 different attributes of what you were like before you came to know Christ. So for me, I was very angry. I was full of hatred. And I was selfish. And then in this middle part, I want you to write this. So it would kind of go a little bit something like this. So, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Well, I'm doing good. How about yourself?" "Well, I'm doing good. Today I got to do some work with my dad. I got to hang out with him. I also went to the park after that. But I have all this free time now. But there was a point in time where I actually didn't have this free time, and I didn't enjoy the things that I do now. For example, I was very angry. So I was angry at a lot of people, and I was full of hatred because of it, and it also led me to be very selfish. But this is where I want you guys to write this down. When I came to know Christ, who wanted to freely forgive me, or better terms, when I learned Jesus wanted to freely forgive me. So we'll write that one down. When I learned Jesus wanted to freely forgive me. Dot, dot, dot. And then that's when you go into what changed. So, like I said, it's the, hey, how are you? I'm good. How about yourself? Then you would explain a little bit of how your day went. And then you would say, it's not always been like that, but, or it's not always been like that. And because of that, back then I was angry. I was full of hatred, which led to selfishness. But when I learned Jesus wanted to freely forgive me, that's when you would, again, go into what changed. So I became more kind. I became, I guess, more aware of people's feelings. And I became caring, which is actually what I should have wrote, but that's fine. I became kind. I became more aware and more caring, and I give more. And so, after you finish your 15-second testimony, the question you want to lead with is, do you? Yeah, let's draw an arrow over here. It's, do you have an experience with Jesus? Do you have an experience with Jesus as well? And you'll get yes or no. And sometimes people will be willing to share right after, but like I said, it really just depends on the setting. So if you're at a restaurant and it happens to be busy, I would say wait until this person comes back, and if they would be willing to share with you, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. If you can sense or believe that they would want to talk more, but it's just not a good time to talk then and there, ask them for their Snapchat, Instagram, phone number, whatever they're comfortable with giving, and so that way they can respond to you when you text them at a more appropriate time. But in case you are able to talk with this individual then and there, like I said, they'll either answer yes or no. And if they answer no, you could ask them, are you interested in learning about God's story? So we'll just do God's story ? As like a question. And so if they say yes or no to this, we'll give you the, if they say yes to it, then you could give them the 3 circles, which is something I'll explain, and I'll also give a link to in the description so you guys can understand it a better way, or a different way, I should say. So if they answer yes, then, of course, like I was saying, lead into the 3 circles. So the 3 circles, and if you don't have enough room, you can, of course, write on the back of your piece of paper. But for me, I'm going to do right here. And so it's very easy. You can tell God's story in just a few minutes, and you can do this on a napkin as well. So, in the beginning, God created the earth, and the earth was perfect, and he saw it as good. And so he made the first 2 humans, Adam and Eve. And so God literally gave them the world, and they had everything. But he told them not to eat of a specific tree, and because of their evil desires within and the influence that they had gotten to eat of that fruit, they became separated from God and transitioned into this world. That's the separation mark. Into this world of sin or brokenness. And so, because of that, there's a lot of things that go on that you can see as broken. And so, this is when you would ask the person, name three things that you have seen that represents brokenness. Some people might say drugs. Of course, that is one of them. Some people will say stealing. Or what you can ask is, what would represent brokenness or corruption? And then they would also get stealing. Murder would also represent brokenness, because it's not normal to murder people, of course. And after the three things, you could also say, well, I've noticed that people also tend to fill in this emptiness they have inside with stuff like relationships, politics. Some people do video games. Some people do, of course, the drugs, alcohol. A part of the relationship would be sex. So, you know, and so that also represents a desire to fulfill that emptiness that we all have. And at one point, because the Bible tells us that we were once like the non-believers, we at some point did not have Christ in our life. So God saw all this and wanted to fix that. So his solution was to deliver his son Jesus Christ to die on the cross, which is to represent that. So he sent down his son to die on the cross, and then to rise again from the dead. And anyone who recognizes from their brokenness that they are a sinner, so then you would write this. So yeah, they recognize they're a sinner, and then they go to God in prayer. They can receive Jesus. If they recognize that they're a sinner, they confess with their mouth. So we'll do something like this. They'll confess with their mouth. They will also repent, and then they will claim Jesus as Lord. And then because they accept Jesus as their King, their Lord and Savior, they come back to God. So, and then after you explain this, you'll say, so I have a question for you. Do you personally feel that you are restored, broken, or are you unsure of where you're at right now? If they say restored, that's good. But if they say either of these answers, you ask them, what is stopping you from receiving Jesus? And yeah, I guess I'll go in here. So yeah, what is stopping you from receiving Jesus? And so you'll get a variety of answers. I mean, it could be because somebody was hurt by people at church, or they lost their dog, they lost a family member. To them, it would, I guess, make sense if God is so good, then why does He allow bad things to happen? Which, of course, the answer to that is free will. But yeah, like I said, I mean, you'll get a variety of answers, and so you'll go according to that. If people ask, why do you believe, then of course that's a part of that testimony. But yeah, so if you ask them this and then they say something specific, you can ask them, well, how could I pray for you? And that will be their choice if they're comfortable with you praying over them. And so some people might hear this and then uh, they'll want you to help lead them to Christ, which is always a great thing. That's what we want through this process. So, one thing I did forget to mention, when you ask, do you have an experience with Jesus? If they say yes or no, you can even tell the people who say yes the God story and help teach them and disciple them a little bit. But if you ask them about teaching God's story, you'll get three different types of responses, and this is where we're going to get into the stoplight. So the stoplight, traffic light, you'll get one of three responses. You get the green light, yellow light, or red light. Of course, we know what this one indicates. The green light is a yes, red light is a no, and then this one is a maybe. Normally, maybe is a good indication that you should get somebody's contact information, whether it's through Snapchat, Instagram, whatever. As I said before, whatever they're comfortable with giving you. The no, you just don't lead into it, but the yes, you for sure tell them. So the maybe part, you might have to teach them a little bit more about God, and of course that comes with this. And so, just it's a good way of delivering God's message in a small time frame. So I'm going to move on to the next question now in the next video.